Alrighty, good evening, everyone. I'm Ivy Sherman. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, so welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. I have our middle school principal, Mr. Gleason, with us, as well as our curriculum associates for math and science, Dr. Jana Ostroff, Helene Kriegstein. They have a lot of really important information to share with you. So I'm going to not waste any time and turn this over to Mr. Gleason.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome. I just want to start out by saying, we know that middle school kids develop really rapidly and at very different rates. If you've ever been to one of my presentations before, you may have seen me put up on screen a very, very tall student and a very, very short student walking next to each other, and they could both be in 7th grade. Because that's the difference at which kids develop. And we do a lot of things to make sure that we meet the needs of all kids. So you're going to hear a little bit about that tonight. You're here because you're going to make an important decision about acceleration, but I want to put that in the right context. The reason why you accelerate is because you want to gain access to upper level courses down the road. And all students will have access to those courses. Whether or not you accelerate in middle school, there are other opportunities to access those courses down the road. All right, so it's important, but in the right context, we're not making decisions about the future of 10-year-olds and 11-year-olds forever tonight, okay? So you're gonna hear more about that from our wonderful curriculum associates. I'm gonna turn it over to our curriculum associate for mathematics, Ms. Kriegstein.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you so much for coming tonight. Most of you have handouts to this slide presentation. There's also a QR code up there which will take you directly to the slide presentation. It might take a few minutes to load because it's on Beautiful AI, and if you haven't used that, it takes a little time to load, but we will also have it posted on the Jericho website. You're welcome to take screenshots. I know a lot of people like to take screenshots. That's perfectly fine, but I do want you to know that you will have access to the presentation in its entirety on the website or through the QR code. So tonight's session is really about clarity and transparency. We really want to ensure that families understand the different pathways that are available and the criteria that is expected for acceleration. We have different types of acceleration, which we are going to go over. So let's get right into what our goals are. And we do understand that the process can feel confusing, and like I said, our goal tonight is to make sure that you leave understanding the why, the what, the how of every option, and this is really about helping students find the right level of challenge, not necessarily the fastest pace of challenge, and I think that's really important. So you can see our goals up here. We want to talk about the difference between single acceleration and OGA, which is off-grade acceleration. We are going to discuss the criteria, the structure of the math and science assessments. You're going to see flow charts of the different pathways for math and science, and we are going to get to frequently asked questions, and then you'll have the opportunity to ask us any questions that you want. So let me introduce for the next slide Jana Ostroff, who will be talking about single acceleration.
Okay, so the purpose of off-grade acceleration or single acceleration is to, as our prior speakers have said, to have students who are ready to undertake the challenge of a high school course in middle school. And this is different for different children. So Jericho offers 2 different types of acceleration, just to clarify. First is double acceleration, or what we call off-grade acceleration, which we're talking about today, where 7th graders are undertaking high school level coursework and Regents assessments. Then much more common is single acceleration. And in planning 8th grade, all of our students and their families are offered the opportunity to take acceleration in 8th grade. So students can opt to take Algebra 1 in math, or students can opt to take Earth and Space Science as their science in 8th grade to accelerate, and that's considered single acceleration. And we're going to explain it a little more as the presentation goes by. But sometimes we hear that parents or kids want to accelerate to be with friends, or this perception that it's like they have to get ahead, and so they have to do this or they won't. And so as was described to you, students develop at all different times, and there are many, many pathways towards the higher accelerated or AP courses and electives. So students will all have the opportunity to take electives. Students also all have the opportunity, regardless of whether they singly or doubly accelerate or take the regular pathway, they will also have the opportunity to take AP and other electives as well. And so we wanted to clarify that tonight. But again, there are more options or opportunities if you take some of these high school coursework. So for students who are ready and students who will thrive, this is sometimes something that we offer and something that we think is right and suitable for our kids.
So I'd like to talk about off-grade acceleration and some questions that we typically get regarding off-grade acceleration. So in 6th grade, our students are heterogeneously grouped, and at the midpoint of 6th grade, it'll be around February, we have discussions about recommendations for placement in terms of single acceleration, and Dr. Ostroff was just discussing that. We will also show you pathways so that you can really see the progression. Double acceleration would really be skipping ahead 2 years. And while single acceleration is open enrollment, so we will make recommendations for students who are coming into 7th grade. For example, for math, do we recommend that they take Math 7? Or do they recommend that they take Math 7 accelerated? We will make those recommendations, but it's ultimately your choice. It's the choice of the family. And even if you choose something that we didn't necessarily recommend, we are still going to be cheerleaders for your children's success. So no matter, you cannot make a wrong decision. When it comes to off-grade acceleration, that is not open enrollment. So I want to talk to you in full transparency about what is the criteria for off-grade acceleration, and what does that mean, and what are the advantages, and will my child be at a disadvantage if they're not in that off-grade accelerated program? So the OGA is 2 years ahead of what would be typically taken at any given year. So for example, if a student is taking algebra in grade 7, that's off-grade accelerated because non-accelerated students are taking it in 9th grade. So that's where the 2 years comes in. When is it offered? It's offered when students are coming into 7th grade. I will talk about a couple of exceptions this year. But in terms of performance criteria, first of all, report card grades. If your son or daughter is going to be considered for off-grade acceleration, they really need to be performing at a mastery level on their grade level, especially if we're thinking about putting them ahead by 2 years. So we're really looking at those mastery levels on all assessments, on report card grades. We do look at their performance levels in math, in science, and ELA, because science and math are as much reading and academic vocabulary as they are content specific. So we do look at that as well. In addition, we have 2 content assessments that we use. One of them is the American Math Competition for grade 8, also known as the AMC 8. That'll be given on January 22nd, 2026. There is a link in this presentation, and everyone should have received links through Parent Square and through the classroom teachers. October 17th, I'd like you to indicate if your child wants to take the AMC 8 by October 17th, and that is required. So if you want your son and daughter to be considered for OGA, it is a requirement that they participate in that AMC 8 contest. There will also be a science OGA placement test. That date will be to be determined, but it will be in March, and that is another content test. So you will get more information on that. I also want you to know that our process is not just about numbers. We really look at this as a holistic approach. So what I have up here in front of you, I'm certainly not going to read this to you, but these are math and science practices, and it's really habits of mind in the classroom. Teachers have a rubric that they complete on students who might be interested in OGA. And in addition to the numbers that I was just speaking of, we want to see students' perseverance. We want to see, can they be reflective and forward-thinking? Can they critique their own work and show viable reasoning? Can they critique the work of others? Do they have the perseverance and the mindset and the tenacity and the academic and social and emotional maturity to be at that level? So we do look at those things as well, because we want to make sure that they can think like mathematicians and like scientists. We should all be thinking like mathematicians and scientists. So let's get into the math progressions. So this chart is the regular pathway, not accelerated. So I'm going to go through this relatively quickly because I know why you are all here. So in grade 7, the non-accelerated students, they're in Math 7, then they progress through Math 8, Algebra, Geometry, Algebra 2, Pre-Calculus. I will say, and I really want you to hear me on this, when you're making a decision about whether or not your child should accelerate, single accelerate in the middle school, I promise you, you cannot make a wrong decision because we have multiple pathways. We don't believe that a decision should be made when a child is 11 years old about whether that 11-year-old should have the opportunity to take calculus in high school. There are students that progress at different rates and at different times. And for that reason, even if a child is in a regular pathway, a non-accelerated pathway, they still have the opportunity to take any of these 3 calculus courses in high school. College calculus, which is a non-AP calculus, advanced placement calculus AB, or advanced placement calculus BC. They will have that opportunity. There are a lot of places, not Jericho, but there are plenty of other school districts where once you are in a track, you can't get off that track. That's not how we operate. So if a student is in a non-accelerated pathway, once they finish the 3, what I call foundational math courses, which are the Regents level math courses, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, once they complete Algebra 2, they have an option to take a course over the summer. It needs to be an approved course. I have lists of approved courses that they can take. They need to get a B in such a course, and then they can accelerate to one of the calculus courses. Or another way of doing it is they could co-enroll. Again, this is optional, but they could co-enroll and take pre-calculus for half a credit concurrently with Algebra 2, and then that'll get them the opportunity to take one of our calculus courses. Again, it's optional, but what's important is it gives students access. So if a child was not accelerated in 7th grade and starts moving through these Regents courses and decides, you know what, I'm kind of hitting my stride later, I'm in high school, I want to challenge myself, I want to have the opportunity to take calculus, that opportunity is still there. I'd like to show you now the difference between off-grade acceleration and regular acceleration. And the main difference, as I said, is that this right side of the chart, acceleration in grade 7, that's open enrollment. Your choice. We make recommendations, you choose. The OGA there's criteria for that, which I discussed also. But the important thing about this chart that I want to point out to you is that in both cases, whether you are off-grade accelerated or single accelerated, both cases have access to multivariable calculus. The difference is that the OGA students will go right through, and there's a certain expectation that they will take multivariable calculus. Because the purpose of acceleration is not to rush through the content and finish early and then have nothing going on in 12th grade. That's not the purpose of acceleration. The purpose is to take additional coursework. So that's very succinct what that looks like for OGA. If you are not in OGA and you're accelerated, you could do that summer coursework or co-enroll in pre-calculus, and by doing that, right here in grade 11, you will see that everyone will meet up in Calculus BC. Whether or not you were OGA or not, you will meet up in the same spot if you choose. You don't have to. If you don't want to do the double math class and you don't want to take a summer school class, that's perfectly fine too. You'll go to pre-calculus, and then you'll go to a calculus class without taking multivariable. But you have the options. And I think it's so important for parents to remember that by not accelerating or not double accelerating, I feel like there is a misconception out there that somehow people are thinking, well, my child won't have access to all of these AP courses and all of these classes, and that is not the case. If you ultimately are not going to take multivariable calculus, which, by the way, is equal to a second or third year college math course. I don't know how many math people there are. Well, I shouldn't say math people. If you're a person and you do math, then you're a math person. But anyone who is in the field knows that multivariable calculus is a course that most high schools do not offer. I don't know of any high school that offers that course regularly. So multivariable calculus extends beyond Calculus BC. So we're taking calculus and extending it to multivariables. So we're looking at how things operate not just on a single curve, but in a three-dimensional plane. We're looking at partial derivatives, multiple integrals, vectors. It's very advanced mathematics. There's a high degree of rigor for a high school student to be in that class. And I want to share a little anecdote with you. Recently in the high school, we were at the deadline for dropping classes. It was just about a week ago. I had a significant number of students who were right here in Calc BC as 11th graders. This just happened. I probably had about 10 kids. 11th graders in Calc BC who wanted to forget taking multivariable calculus. They wanted to drop out of BC and go to Calc AB. They all, no exceptions, all of them knew that they would have been better off if they didn't double up over here and they simply took a full year of pre-calculus and then went into one of these calculus courses. And when I asked, well, why did you double up, or why did you take a summer course? I don't know, everybody was doing it. I don't know, it was offered and I just figured I'd try it. It sounds good in theory until you have to do that actual work. And so what's happening is now we have students who are in AB as juniors. They can't get to multivariable because BC is a prerequisite. They're either going to have a hole in their schedule or they'll fill it with the math elective. So I'm just telling you, and you have plenty of time to figure this out, But there is no, don't start taking courses because everybody else is doing it. Take courses because you have a true interest in that deep mathematics and that you want to continue to grow and to learn and to be challenged in mathematics, not because it's available. And I think if you have that in mind, you'll make the right decision. This chart, I know it looks confusing, but I wanted to put everything on one page. So it's nothing new. It's taking the non-accelerated pathway next to the OGA, next to the not accelerated at all. So again, what I want to point out is access. All of these pathways have access to calculus, and the OGA and the regular accelerated pathway has access to that multivariable calculus course. Let me see if I had anything else in my notes. I think that was it for me. I'm going to turn it. Yes, I'm going to turn it over to science, and then we'll get to frequently asked questions.
Thank you. So just as you saw in the math presentation, I'm going to start with the non-accelerated science program. So you can see similarly that the different pathways. So when you look at the end, we're going to start backwards. So looking at the same kind of philosophy as math, looking at what is it that you want to have access to as a student? What do you want your children to have access to? The highest level of physics would be AP Physics C. So Physics C can be either mechanics and or electromagnetism. And those are the high level classes that might be a part of someone's program if they were going into physics and or engineering fields, anything in astronomy and such. Those would be required in those areas. But you'll see that even in a sequence where there's no acceleration whatsoever, all of our students have access to the full repertoire of science courses, including physics, and they also have access to a number of different AP courses and electives. So you can see here that students can access AP Physics 1, AP Environmental Science, AP Bio, and AP Chemistry. And similar to math, if students do opt to take a summer elective chemistry class, they can also then go on to take AP Physics C as well. And there are some students who also double up in sciences and may take 2 lab sciences even to take full advantage of all of the courses that we offer here. So you'll see, and I just want to describe so in 7th grade has a lot of overlap, but it's middle level life science. Then in 8th grade, they have an earth science course, but it is middle level earth science, such that students who don't accelerate then first take the high school Regents level, Regents assessment course in the 9th grade. And I'm just going to hover here for a little while and talk to you a little bit about the new science assessments. So recently, and if you have older children, it's very important to hone in on this. Very recently, New York State has changed the Regents examinations. And now, the current Regents examinations that are these new high school courses require a very high level of not only academic transfer or conceptual transfer, but a very high level of numeracy and literacy. So content vocabulary, academic vocabulary, and the rigor and or even scale of student assessment scores is much different than it was in the past. So you'll note overall statewide, there's a more rigorous assessment, and overall statewide student assessment scores in these new more rigorous exams has decreased or declined. And so that's just something to keep in mind as we're looking through this, that the nature of the assessments are changing greatly and becoming a lot more rigorous. And so when we're thinking about what's a right placement for a child, we want all of the assessments and the coursework to be at a cognitive level that's just right for them. Meaning we want them to thrive, we want them to be successful, we want them to be able to achieve mastery. And we don't necessarily want to set goals or assessments that may not meet their needs best. And that is the purpose of all these criteria for the off-grade acceleration. So here you see single acceleration and off-grade acceleration side by side. So you'll see that in off-grade acceleration, students are taking 2 different Regents level assessment and courses in 7th and then 8th grade. And you'll also notice that all of our 8th grade students that are accelerated are together. So students who do off-grade acceleration meet up with their peers that are in single acceleration in 8th grade. So that's the nice part about this sequence, specifically for our middle school students in 8th grade, that regardless of whether you're off-grade or single acceleration, they meet up. Once they go to the high school, they're mixed in, meaning a student that was in off-grade acceleration will be mixed in with their peers based on their electives, their scheduling, whatever meets their individual needs best, but they're not tracked with their peers, they're not in a cohort together. So the students really are only in the one class together when they're in the 7th grade, then they're with all of their peers in 8th grade, and then in 9th through 12th grade, they're mixed in with other students that are in the same courses that they are, regardless of the grade that they're in, regardless of the level that they started, or whether they participated in off-grade or single acceleration. So you can see that students who participate in off-grade acceleration, there's this funny little asterisk there, and I have to speak to the asterisk as well. So they would start in Regents Life Science Biology in 7th grade, then in 8th grade take Regents Earth and Space Science, followed by Chemistry in 9th grade. And then you see AP Bio with a little asterisk. Currently, it's required by New York State that students take 2 semesters of a life science class. New York State does not recognize 7th grade as a part of their high school coursework or transcript. They'll accept a Regents exam as a Regents pass towards graduation, but they will not accept that Regents or that class as a part of the student's life science requirement. Now, graduation standards are changing, but New York State hasn't yet informed us whether this will specifically change. So I want to point that out, that it may change for this cohort, but as of now, New York State has not clarified if this will remain a requirement or whether that requirement will be changed. So there's a little asterisk there, and I just wanted to speak to it so that you're aware as we're going ahead and that it's a part of this presentation, so that if and when anything changes and we inform you, you know what the prior expectation was and what we're referring to. So as you can see, students can then finish a course sequence where they're able to take AP Physics, AP Environmental, AP Bio, AP Chemistry, and this Advanced Physics, meaning AP Physics C. You'll see in single accelerated, students also by 12th grade can access the AP Physics C. And similar to math, if you look at the non-8th grade accelerated, you'll see that there's different avenues to go through, whether it's through the summer, whether it's doubling up on different science classes. If a student's very passionate about physics or engineering, they can still find their way to make sure they can take advantage of that upper level coursework. So regardless of where they start, in 7th grade, in 8th grade, whether they accelerate doubly, singly, or do not accelerate at all, they can also wind up in the same place in science.
So let's go through some of your frequently asked questions. So the first question, what percentage of students are enrolled each year? Now, this question was specific about OGA. So what percentage of students are off-grade accelerated each year? It's usually about 9 or 10% of the grade. And remember, this refers to not when someone is self-selecting themselves later by doubling up, but when we put students into OGA, it's about 9 or 10%. It's usually it's been one section. Do you offer accreditation from other institutions? So you could refer back to the pathways for math and science. There are circumstances where we take credit from colleges or universities for which I've pre-approved, but that still doesn't count as Jericho credit. That's only, we recognize it in order to advance to the next level, but it's not, we don't award credit for those classes. Yes, math and science are the same in that way. Are OGA math and science separated? They are separated. So what happens is Dr. Ostrov and I both separately, completely separately, look at all of these data points that we've discussed with you. So that's report card grades. This is when we're thinking about OGA. We're looking at report card grades. That's the first filter. If students aren't getting A's and A pluses, we're not considering them for OGA. So we look at report card grades. We look at NWEA scores. We're looking for very high scores, 98th, 99th percentile. I'm looking at the AMC 8. Jen is looking at her science test, and we're reviewing it all on our own until we're making our final decisions. And it's not until the very end that we come together to just say, you know, who's going where. And then there are some students that are both going, we're recommending for both. There are other students who will only be recommended for math or only recommended for science. So we do two completely separate processes, and then we come together at the end. So yes, that was a long way of saying they're separated. What is the scope of the assessment exam? So in math, the AMC 8 is based on problem-solving questions. It's all middle-level mathematics. You could look up previous exams. Science OGA assessment is criterion referenced, so it's an exam that is curated here in-house on science content. Are there cut scores? So there aren't specific cut scores. Life would be much easier if we decided that there were cut scores, right? Because then it would be okay, if you got this level or up, you're in. But we don't do that. We triangulate the data. So what does that mean? Maybe I'm looking for a score, hypothetically, of 15 on the AMC 8 and 99 percentile on NWEA. Well, maybe somebody got a 14 and a 99%. So if someone's a little low in one area and a little bit higher in the other area, I'm still going to consider them. And that's the same for science. So we don't have a specific cut score across all of the criterion, but we do have general ideas of where we want the students to be, and we will be flexible if someone is a little lower in one area, as long as they're a little higher in the other area. Why are there 6th grade students already in the accelerated program? So there were several questions about this. And there are a few 6th grade students right now in the accelerated program, and that is brand new this year. So it's not that we have this 6th grade program and we didn't tell anybody. It's not like that at all. There's not a program. We identified certain students who were far off the charts when it came to NWEA and the RIT scores. These were scores that were extremely high. I'm not just talking about percentiles. I'm talking about where they were within that percentile. And then we dug in a little bit more into the math that their mathematical processes after we identified them from NWEA, and we did make some exceptions, but please know that this is an exception, this is not the rule, this may not ever happen again, you know, so this is something that we want to be responsive and dynamic, and we want our systems to consider students at their current level of readiness, and that was the right place for those particular students. When our decisions announced, we announced them right before spring break, and whether or not your child is recommended or not for OGA, you're going to remember that there are pathways and they have access. It means they're not ready right now. It doesn't mean they're never going to be ready. How do students prepare? You know, I'm hearing a lot about parents getting tutors and preparing for OGA and going to institutes, and that's really not the point of this. The point of it is to meet students at their current level of readiness so that they can be successful. Because we don't want to push students so hard and try and prepare for a test and have them enter a math program or a science program that's 2 years ahead of what a typical program would be like, only for them to come out of it later, because that's what I'm seeing with some high school students right now. It would be like preparing for a physical, just have a healthy lifestyle. How do students get access to this information on acceleration? So this is a QR code that will take you to a condensed version of this presentation, which is going to be shared with our 6th grade teachers. They will present it to their students because we want the students to hear this information, not necessarily in this amount of detail, but we want them to have an overall understanding of what OGA is. So there's a companion presentation, if you will, that the 6th graders will get. Other questions are, what types of supports are available for students who might need extra help in keeping up with the accelerated pace, and are there any additional resources provided to help students? Other than the traditional extra help, which occurs in all of our classes, there's nothing else special about helping students in accelerated math class. As a matter of fact, we do not offer AIS, which stands for Academic Intervention Services, also known as support, math support classes. We do not offer that for accelerated classes. So that's something to keep in mind. Can students who initially don't qualify for the program join later if they show progress during the school year? Yes and no. They can't just leave their math class in the middle of the school year unless they're really in a dire situation. But if a student is, for example, in math 7, regular math 7, if that student wants to take algebra and go into a single accelerated, we can talk about that. There might be some extra topics that I'll want that student to study over the summer. If a student is in math 7 accelerated and does not want to continue in the accelerated program, we can certainly put that student in math 8 the following year instead of algebra the following year. That's fine. If a student is in algebra 1 and feels like this is too much, I want to come back into math 8, we can do that as long as there's availability, but that would have to be done early in the school year. What we're not going to do is, after a student completes algebra 1 and says, I don't want to be an accelerated anymore, well, you're already in it. You've already taken algebra 1, so the next course is geometry. We're not going to have them repeat a course. So I hope that makes sense. Expectations involving state testing. They test with their cohort. So students who are in Math 7 Accelerated or Math 7 Regular will still take the New York State Math 7 test. Students who are in Algebra 1 or any of our Regents classes will take that Regents exam. So if they're in Algebra 1 as an 8th grader, they're not going to take the Math 8 assessment, they will take the Algebra assessment. In terms of homework and project load, there was a question about what is the homework and project load for students in these, meaning accelerated classes, compared to regular courses. I think if a student enters at the right stage of readiness, the homework and projects and assessments should really be manageable. If a student is really in over his or her head, that's where maybe it would be difficult, but it should all be manageable if they're in the right place. Go back. Oh, if students are skipping both Math 7 and Math 8 to advance to Algebra 1, when do they learn those 2 years of curriculum? So if we identify students as ready for OGA, ready for Algebra 1, that means that I am confident that they already have the prerequisite skills for Algebra 1. We do not make these decisions lightly, trust me. We go through data very, very carefully, and your son or daughter will not be recommended for Algebra 1 if they don't already have the prerequisite skills. And we will determine if they do through those criterion and norm reference tests that we talked about. So they will not learn Math 7 and Math 8 explicitly here. They will not. But we will be confident that they will have the skills some other way if I'm recommending them for Algebra 1. Number 6, if a student is placed in the accelerated course but struggles to keep up, I think I already answered that question. Is Math Olympiads part of the accelerated program? It's not. Math Olympiad is a club in 6th grade. Anybody is welcome to join. I have a feeling you'll probably run into a lot of students who love math and will probably wind up in an accelerated program, but anyone is welcome to join Math Olympiads. I do want to just end by thanking the families for your partnership. We're all looking to make sure that your children are in the right places. We're happy to hang around for a few minutes and take any questions. I could also open it up if there are questions that we didn't answer already. See, I read your frequently asked questions. Yes?
Just a quick question. How does it work in high school in terms of a weighted GPA and unweighted? For some courses you have a higher count towards that and some towards that?
So for those of you that didn't hear, the question has to do with weighted versus unweighted GPA in the high school. So all of the courses, so that's really a question that our guidance department could answer more easily than I can, but I will tell you what I know. The courses have an add-end in terms of weight based on whether it is an AP level course or a research class. Those courses will be weighted a little bit more than Regents level classes. That's what I have here. So for example, the only difference in weight from everything that we've shown you would be Regents classes versus the advanced placement and Regents level classes. Research and AP, I think have a slightly higher weight than Regents classes. But you still have to take all of the Regents classes to get to that level anyway. So students who are single accelerated is about 60%. 60%? Okay, 60% regular accelerated, and it varies from year to year because it's open enrollment. So roughly 60% will accelerate, single accelerate, and then maybe you'll have another 10%-ish that's OGA. Does that answer your question? Yeah, about 30 or 40%. Any other questions? It's not the question is AMC8 available in Chinese language? It is not, but I can allow students to use a glossary or a dictionary as long as I have it 24 hours in advance. But it's not offered in Chinese. I don't see it before the exam.
So regarding the grade, would that be 4.7 or like past 3 years? Regarding the current grade, would that be the grade 4.7 or for the last 2 years?
When you look at the criteria, you're using the previous year or next year?
Oh, I'm sorry. So when we're looking at criteria, we're looking at the most recent criteria. So students who are currently in grade 6 looking to go into OGA, we're looking at criteria of this school year. At the time that we make these decisions, we don't have the results of their 6th grade New York State math test. We might look at the 5th grade one, but we're looking at this year's AMC 8, we're looking at this year's report cards, grades, everything is from this school year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, question, with respect to the high school level courses, so if they do school acceleration for double acceleration, am I right in assuming that grade 7 level work will be on their high school level?
Okay, so the question is, will 7th grade level work, even if it's a high school level course, be on their transcript? It's an excellent question. Thank you for asking that. So the answer is no. It will not be on their high school transcript, but if that course culminates in a Regents exam, that Regents grade will be on the transcript, but the course credit will not be acknowledged as part of their high school credits. So the coursework begins in grade 8. So even if you are, let's say, double accelerated, you're taking algebra in 7th grade, the next course in 8th grade is geometry. That's where it's going to start, with that geometry course. And then you'll need 3 years of math credit beyond that. You're welcome. So yes. Yeah, so if you get, well, regardless of whatever you get in algebra, whether you get A's, B's, or whatever, if you're taking algebra before 8th grade, it will have nothing to do with your high school transcript. Nothing. So the high school transcript is going to begin in grade 8 if you're taking a Regents level class. So if you're not an accelerated student and you're taking Math 8, that is not going to be on your high school transcript. It's a middle school class. If you are in grade 8 taking a high school class such as Earth and Space Science or Living Environment or Algebra 1 or any of those high school level courses beginning in grade 8, that will be on the transcript. Does that sound clear to everybody? Okay, well, I'm glad it sounds clear to you. Yes.
I want to find out, you mentioned about the NWEA score and AMCA scores for the team, like estimate, right? But what if we have more than 30 people got that score? What are you going to do about that?
If there are more than 30 people, I don't know, but I'll...
40, but we got an excellent math program, you know?
Well, we do. We have great, that could very well happen. I'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. So I'm just telling you about past practice. So far, it's been about 10%. If there's a lot more than that, then we'll have to investigate that. We want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of these students, and maybe that means that we would require more seats. I don't know. We haven't had that yet.
So we're going to keep the option open for having 2 classes instead of 1, right?
Well, it's not that option was ever closed.
Okay.
It's that we've been looking at the data based on the students who took that, who were interested. So we've never, had, we've never said we're only taking the top 25. If I said that, life that would be easy, but that's not what we do. We want to make sure that people who we're recommending for that course are appropriately recommended. So we're not looking at quotas right now.
All right. For science, AP, I think for the single accelerated, there's no AP biology in single accelerated, right?
AP Biology is still an option in the single accelerated. The reason it's there the way it is is because currently New York State requires 2 semesters of a life science in high school. So the reason it's there is to make a little note for students. They have to take, at least currently, and until when we hear more, we will tell you more if that's no longer the case. Currently, they either have to take AP Bio or Anatomy and Physiology in order to meet their graduation requirement for a life science, because as we keep repeating, their 7th grade courses do not count towards their high school graduation requirements.
On your chart, I don't see the AP Science for the single accelerator.
The AP Bio is all over. You might be far away. If we have some extra copies, I think, here of the handout, but you'll see in like the blue purple box below it, you see AP Bio in there. You see AP Bio all the way through from left to right as an option for students.
So
It's hard to cram all the APs in.
But from my perspective, I don't see a lot of difference between the single and the accelerator because the only difference is you take chemistry at 10 instead of 9, right?
I think the biggest difference would be access to AP Physics C. So if you have a student who's very interested in physical science, hard science, engineering, physics, astronomy, mathematics even sometimes, students who want to take that calculus-based physics class, APC, that would be where you have the biggest difference or barrier. We also want students to take Regents chemistry before they take AP chemistry. We find that that jump is also too big, unlike AP Physics 1 where you can take AP Physics 1. AP Physics 1 is not a calculus-based AP Physics class.
Yes.
Do you mean for OGA?
So, right, I mean, the NWEA scores, we do, so I look, obviously I'm looking at math, right? But I'm also interested in ELA also. I'm interested in that reading level. And I know Dr. Ostroff is as well, right?
Yeah, my data includes all 3. My data includes NWEA for math, ELA, and science.
So we do look at that. I mean, for me, I'll place less importance on the NWEA science and really more looking at the math, and I'll cross-reference it with the ELA. More, I'm not focused in on the science as much. Question? Yes, we have the NWAs from last year, but we're looking at this. We're going to be looking at this year. So in grade 6, I'll be doing 3 of them: fall, winter, spring. Usually in grade 6 they do, yeah, 3 times: fall, winter, spring. Yeah, they already took 1. 1 is done. So, yes, another question.
Which help is available in the school for students to prepare for AMC 8?
We don't offer help for preparing for AMC 8. You can find the previous AMC 8 questions if you could just Google AMC 8, you'll see them. We don't offer specific like sessions to prepare kids for AMC 8 though. We don't do that.
But they can still consult their teachers for help if they are stuck somewhere.
Yeah, if they have a question, they're always welcome to ask their teacher. But the AMC 8 is focused on questions that might be different than what's currently in the teacher's curriculum. So it might be something that might come up more in like a math club, like math leads to math Olympiads, math counts. Those are where more of those questions would come up. Well, I just wanted, yes, one more question.
For science, in grade 11, our students are allowed to prepare for 2 AP classes in grade 11.
Yes. So let me repeat the question. Students can double up and take 2 different AP classes in 11th grade. I do want, As a scientist, as a parent, and as an educator, as someone who's gone through the college process as a teacher, right, as an administrator, and then as a parent, and looking at AI and its impact on kind of futuring, right? There's a lot of different science tech, science economics, and McKinsey and Company has a great piece that they've done that kind of really changed the way I thought about the future, where they've been looking at the job expectations in the next, 5 to 10 years, and it's going to change fast, like 5 years. And it's high-level cognitive skills and it's social emotional skills, that those soft skills, or what we used to call soft skills, which are now like the important skills that we want to be building in our kids every day. And if you look at it in the future, will it be so different for a college if a child takes 10 AP courses or 15 AP courses? As a parent, I sat there and had these conversations with my own children. Does the accumulation of AP classes, maybe your weighted average will be a point 2 higher, right? We know that, we acknowledge that, we have to acknowledge that. Mathematically, will it make a difference? Does it matter if you're number 1, 2, 3, 10, 15, 20 in a school like Jericho, where people do start knowing, and they're using AI now in colleges to know what you're ranking or what that means for your school, right? And then they'll get to know us better as Jericho. And I think AI will really help us in the college application process because our students are so high achieving, right? And so we're not competing against each other. We're creating future mathematicians and scientists, future AI professionals who are going to lead the way. So when you're looking at your child and looking at 6th grade, I hope that you can also see we're not accumulating AP classes, we're not rushing them through, we're taking them where they're developmentally at, and we're going to make sure that they enjoy and thrive and learn as much how to be scientists and how to be mathematicians. And so I just want to leave you with that, because I think the world is changing. And I think that it's less about the accumulation of content and skills or knowledge or AP classes. And I think while we want kids to have access to calculus, we know that that's valuable. We want students to have a repertoire of classes, including chemistry and physics. We know that that's valuable. And we want them to have exposure to high-level coursework and to dabble in their passions. I want to keep that perspective, and the perspective we started with. Our kids are young in 6th grade, right? They're young and they're developmentally very diverse. Back to where your principal started us.
And I can't think of a better place to close the presentation. I completely agree with what Jen is saying. So we will hang around for a few minutes if anyone wants to ask us any additional questions. But most of all, on behalf of the administration and Dr. Ostroff and myself, Dr. Sherman and Mr. Gleason, we really thank you for your partnership in helping us support your students' growth. And we really appreciate you being here. And I would hope if you have any questions at all about the math program or about the science program, that you directly reach out to me, Helene Kriegstein, hkriegstein@jerichoschools.org, or to Jana Ostroff. We are here to answer questions. So again, if anything comes up relative to mathematics or science, we are the people to go to ask, and we're really happy to answer them. So we'll hang out for a little while. Thank you so much for coming.
I think it is a change.